How we doing today, neighbors? Ian with eTrailer here. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Roadmaster rear sway bar kit on our 2005 Workhorse chassis. Let's get into a couple features of that and then the install. Now the Workhorse chassis here is a great big vehicle. We're talking 40 feet long and well high enough to give it a high center of gravity that's going to give a lot of body roll headed down the road. And unfortunately, these particular chassis were not given sway bars on the front or rear. And so in our case, since we're looking at the rear one, I did want to mention there is a front sway bar kit that would pair nicely with this. And we always try to recommend, if the neighbor's going to do one or the other, just to go ahead and do both to help that entire suspension system opposed to the front or back. And with this kit, you're going to be able to throw this up and take all that body roll for the most part out, and it's just going to give you a more level comfort ride when you're headed down the road. Those little bumps that seem to jostle the wheel around in your hands are going to feel a little less abrasive, and you're going to be able to keep that straight track like you'd like. So working our way down the line at the bushings, we are going to look at those because those are a nice polyurethane bushing on all of our ends, so those are going to last a lot longer than your traditional rubber bushings will. They just handle the elements a little bit better, and since this is one of the most exposed parts of the vehicle headed down the road, that polyurethane is really going to make all the difference. And then the bar itself is made out of a 4140 steel and 1 3/4 inches thick here in the rear of the vehicle, so more than enough to keep that good firm suspension for you. Now before we get into the install on this one, I will say this is probably one of the more difficult ones to do, and simply because with this being an 05 and an older chassis, everything's very rusted together. You do have to replace the U-bolts on both sides, and that can be a little tricky as far as getting those old nuts off the old U-bolts. They're going to be extremely rusty, and I'm going to walk you through all of the hard parts of this, to include hanging our brackets up off of the frame sides, because that is probably, in my opinion, the second hardest part of this. You will have to drill through the frame, so if you happen to watch the video and decide, oh, this isn't something I want to tackle, or I'd prefer somebody else did this, do check out our dealer locator on the website. We'd be happy to get you a trained professional that can walk through this and get this all put into place for you. But for all those DIYers that will be tackling this at home, I'm going to walk you through every step, and let's go ahead and get into that now. Now we are going to start under the vehicle, and we will need to remove just the driver's side U-bolts for now. You only want to do one side at a time, so that's worth mentioning. Do soak those nuts on the end of the U-bolt studs overnight in penetrant. It's just going to help break up some of that rust and corrosion that's going to build up under there. And with this being an 05, we've definitely got quite a bit of that corrosion. So I've got a pretty good size breaker bar. If you've got air impact tools, that's probably going to be the best way to do this, but we're going to be using hand tools here today. So just get all of those broken loose, and we'll get those old U-bolts out of the way. Now before we take our last bolt off, you do want to have some type of retainer for your shock, since that is part of the plate on the bottom of where the U-bolts live. We are going to be pulling the U-bolts out just one at a time on each side, but to avoid any type of issue, just go ahead and get your front U-bolt put in, but make sure you have something around this shock just in case when you're taking everything apart it wants to move on you. We're going to come to that front U-bolt and get that tapped out. And then we'll take that new U-bolt, go up over the springs, and drop it back down where the previous U-bolt was. Now, to help hold everything in place and make sure that this shock doesn't extend, we're going to go ahead and thread on the nuts for that front U-bolt, just to keep anything from shifting on us once we take the rear one out. Easiest way to remember the orientation on both of these is it does kind of look like a big arrow, so we're going to want our small holes pointing forward and inside of the vehicle. So that just slides right over. And then we'll come back with that same washer and then a nut combo and get all 4 of those on there. With all of those up there and snug, we do need to come back and go through with the torque wrench for that torque specification shown in the instruction manual. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can either pick one up from the website along with your order, or you could head down to that local parts store and they should be able to rent one out to you. So we'll just get all of these torqued to that specification. It's going to be an 1 1/8" socket for those. That driver's side bracket in place and everything torqued, we'll hop over to our passenger side. It's going to be the exact same procedure. You'll just want to make sure you orient that bracket again with those 2 holes towards the center and facing the forward side of the vehicle. Now we're ready to hang the bar, so we'll have to put the rubber isolators in our center points here. So you can take that isolator out. It's going to have a little slit in it that's going to allow us to get that over the bar. But first, you'll take the cup of provided grease that comes with the kit. Get a little bit of that. And just get that rubbed on the inside so that way the bar freely floats within the bushing. Use the cut in that bushing to slide it over the bar. Get that flipped around, and then you can take your bracket and slide that over it, and you'll repeat the same process on the other side. You may need an extra set of hands to get this into place, so I've got Aiden here helping me out. What we're going to try to accomplish is to have both of these brackets line up with our holes on the axle bracket. And then we'll take a bolt and a flat washer and run that through the bottom of the bracket. And then we're going to put one of the locking nuts on top. Now we can take this fork here that we've got, and we'll come from the outside in with the provided bolt and go ahead and just hand tighten down to the locking part of the washer on that. We're going to leave all of our hardware loose until we've got the bar all the way up. Take that last bracket, slide that over the bushing, and then go from inside out with that bolt. Just get that finger tight again. We want it nice and loose so we can shift positions if needed. What we're looking to do is hold this up to a spot where it's going to be completely vertical. And once you got that flush, you'll want to make sure you give that a good clamp. The bar and these ends are extremely heavy, so do be careful because it will swing back at you if you let go. Now, to be able to access the outside of the frame where we'll need to drill, we did use the self-leveling legs on the RV here to be able to get us up enough to take all the pressure off of the springs. Without that, we would have a very, very difficult time being able to drill those holes out. So if you need to get some of that pressure off the springs, you can use that self-leveling system. Just make sure you've got some supporting jack stands with it to make sure you stay safe. And once the holes are drilled in the frame, we've got that 1/2" hole for our 1/2" bolt along with another flat washer. So just run that flat washer and bolt there through the face, coming through the frame, and then apply the locking nut on the back side. Then all these 3/4 bolts you'll just snug down, and then you'll have to follow that same torque spec that they've got shown in the instruction manual for these, just like we did with the other hardware. And once we've tightened down and torqued that upper bracket, we're going to start working our way back towards the axle. So you'll come to that first bushing hanging from the shackle, and then our second bushing, go ahead and tighten that one up, and then last but not least is going to be those two here at the bar. So just go in that order, starting from the bracket, down the shackle, and then over to the bar hanger. And that was our look at and installation of the Roadmaster rear sway bar kit on our 2005 Workhorse W chassis. My name is Ian with eTrailer, and I appreciate you watching.